What's up, guys? Toad, right back with you again after last night. Thanks to people who were hanging out last night in the college football show chat. That was a fun show. It went like an hour, 15 minutes. I'm going really long on these college football shows. I have 4 plays in there. If you want to see the analysis on those and breakdown of a few of the other games, including all the ranked matchups, you can go watch that video. Go watch the college football video. It is out on my channel. My plays, I'll just reiterate, and you can go see the analysis over there. Kansas State -5, Minnesota plus 10.5, or I think it's actually at 11 right now. Baylor -3, and Auburn +2, which I took in the middle of the week. It's actually at like -1, 1.5 now. So I would still recommend if you want Auburn. I don't mind still just playing Auburn to win the game. Basically, I'd probably play them on the money line at like wherever it is right now, -115, -120. I don't mind that. And I'm going to have one baseball play. That's what I'm talking about in this show. Here, primarily, the daily breakdown is always baseball because I do a separate football video because there's so much going on. What I will point out, by the way, I forgot to mention it last night on my college football video. UNLV is in this weird situation. I do see a bunch of professionals coming in and playing the UNLV side. UNLV's quarterback quit the team 3 games into the season. I think they're coming out of a bye, so they do have extra rest here, but I don't know what that shakeup is going to do. It seems like professional bettors are thinking that the shakeup and the transition to their new quarterback is actually going to spark the team, but I mean, the team's undefeated right now. They're 3-0, and in their last game going into the bye, they pulled off an upset at Kansas, I think, or it was in Kansas City, but it was a semi-road game at Kansas, and they pulled off the upset there. So it's not like UNLV was playing poorly, but their quarterback, Sluka, I guess there was some NIL thing going on there. It's become a business, man, which I don't disagree with the NIL stuff. Like, I do agree that players should be able to do that, but it's getting into these weird situations where now you just have guys basically like saying, I'm just not going to play for this team anymore. Like, I want to be more recognized somewhere else. So this guy left the team, UNLV, and they're going to have to go with whoever the next quarterback is in line there. So when you handicap a game like that, it's tough because it's different from, I talk about like the fired coach situation and stuff like that, or the injured player theory or something like that, where the injured player theory, the team like steps up because it's a bad situation. They want to step up and accommodate for that star player being out. Fired coach, if the team doesn't like the coach and they're not rallying around him, that tends to spark the team. So the question here is, did the team not like this guy, this quarterback? Is him being gone going to spark the team because they weren't really rallying around him? I don't know, because they had won every game so far, but I think the only big game was really against Kansas, although they did beat Houston, but Houston's pretty down right now, so I don't know. I just figured I'd point that out. Just, it's a tough game to gauge, and with Sluka gone, I think that's the reason the line dropped from UNLV 4.5 to -2. They're hosting Fresno here. Fresno's public with 65% of the tickets, 73% of the cash on them. Really hard one to gauge, so I don't really know. I don't know how to gauge that one, but I do know that there are some professionals who do think that for some reason that's going to be a spark, and they are taking UNLV at the cheaper price there, thinking that it might be value. And UNLV, I think they are a pretty good rushing offense, so I don't think everything really completely goes through their quarterback, though. Although, of course, the quarterback position is still extremely important, so I don't know. So hard to gauge, but yeah, go check out that college football video. I'm a little bit concerned about this Minnesota, or not the Minnesota market. There was one other one that I looked at, and I was like, oh, crap, the market doesn't look good for this. One of the games I'm on, and I can't remember what it is now, but well, whatever the case may be. I'll also point out North Carolina, Duke. It looks like there is a lot of market play on North Carolina, and I think it makes sense. North Carolina got completely embarrassed last week, allowing 70 points or whatever to JMU. Terrible performance from North Carolina. I said they might have been looking ahead to Duke, but man, that was one of the worst defensive performances ever. So I lean to the North Carolina side in this one because they played so poorly in that last game. I think they're going to put in a much better showing here, and I think they were looking ahead to this game. It's a big game for both teams, but Duke is down from 2.5 to 1.5. 50% of the tickets evenly split and 81% of the cash on North Carolina. So it does look like there is play on the North Carolina side. I was also going to point out Wake Forest. This Line almost looks like a trap here. Wake Forest is only laying 3.5 against Louisiana Lafayette. Like, what gives here? I think Louisiana Lafayette's not a bad mid-major team, and Wake Forest is one of the lesser ACC teams. Really, Wake Forest, very public, 70% of the tickets. It almost looks too easy, right, to take an ACC team against Louisiana Lafayette. 66% of the cash on the Lafayette side. So I lean to the I can bring up the college football. I should have the college football schedule up, actually, because I'm talking about so many of these games. I do lean against Wake Forest in that one, just because it looks too easy to take Wake in that one, laying a very cheap price there. But Wake, I mean, they are coming off a big game, a game you get emotionally up for, I guess, against Ole Miss. But Ole Miss is just too powerful, and they just wrecked Wake Forest. So if Wake Forest had played them really close or something like that, I would be looking to fade Wake Forest here. I do still lean to the Lafayette side here, but Wake Forest does have ACC games up next, North Carolina State up next, but they already did start ACC play against Virginia in week 2. I think that was an ACC game, right? Yeah, so I don't know. This is like a down spot in their schedule, if you want to look at it that way. But coming off a huge blowout loss, I don't know if they're really going to be totally unfocused here. But again, it looks like the line's kind of a trap. Louisiana coming into this game, they lost to Tulane in kind of a barn burner of a game, a close game. I think the game might have gone into overtime. No, it didn't. I thought it did. It did not go into overtime. But they gave up a kickoff return touchdown in this game. So I think the score was a little bit misleading in that one, as Lafayette actually outgained Tulane in the game and were -2 in the turnover margin. So the final score may be a little bit misleading there. So I kind of like Louisiana Lafayette on that one. This is like the biggest game on their entire schedule, dude. This is the only big conference team that they're facing all season. So I think they may step it up to face Wake Forest. In the middle of the hurricane situation there. I forgot to mention that last night, too, the hurricane situation. You got to keep your eye on these games that are being played in the South, man, in the path of the hurricane, because I know one game is canceled. The game that was going to be at App State, Liberty at App State, is canceled, and they're not even planning on replaying the game, which I think it's unfortunate. I hate that. That was kind of a decent matchup that people were probably looking forward to, but Boone, North Carolina, where App State is apparently like the entire city is underwater because of the hurricane situation. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. I'm just laughing at how ridiculous the whole thing is. But, yeah, I mean, all right, let's get to the baseball, because I do have one play here. I don't think there's anything else. Well, I mean, I was going to mention maybe Ohio State, Michigan State, and just how sad it is, because in the past, this would be a major game, a huge game between Ohio State and Michigan State, and maybe, I mean, Michigan State's not bad defensively, and their offense may start to click at some point with all those Oregon State guys there. So maybe this will be more competitive than it looks like it would be on the surface. But, man, this is not the Ohio State, Michigan State battle that we're used to seeing. Ohio State's a 23.5-point road favorite. It's just kind of sad, man. What's up, guys, in the comments? Johnny, what's going on, man? Zach, you like Wake in that one? I'm going to oppose that, obviously. I lean against Wake in that one. That's right. I'm bald, so white power as well. My campaign video there, I only released that to Alaska, man, so it didn't get enough traction. That was for the Alaska LP. All right, let's talk about Major League Baseball. We're getting down the stretch, man. This is I think there's only one game left for most of these teams tomorrow. This is the final series, except Atlanta and the Mets still have to play 2 makeup games because of the rain that was going on up here in the Northeast a few days ago. So they actually have 2 games left after Sunday. I think they're going to be playing a doubleheader on Monday to finish off the season, and it's going to probably have major playoff implications. The NL is just a crazy situation right now. The American League is basically set now. So that's got to factor into the handicaps in today's games. It's not going to factor into the one game that I have play on, but what we're looking at here is you got to try to gauge motivation, man, and Detroit just clinched a playoff spot. And I think I would go against Detroit if I was going to play this Detroit White Sox game here, because Detroit, they haven't been in the playoffs for a decade. It's huge, and they were not expected to make the playoffs this year. They came from out of nowhere and made a huge run towards the end of the season, and now they're in the playoffs. So, unfortunately, Minnesota, unfortunately for their fans, They are now eliminated. Detroit and Kansas City, as bad as Kansas City has been playing down the stretch, losing so many games, Kansas City had enough of a lead that they're still in, and nobody really took advantage of it. Detroit was able to get in, though. So I think Detroit clinching, I'm going to guess that they probably celebrated like a lot last night after they clinched. They beat the White Sox, which normally wouldn't be a big deal, but look at this run that they're on. They've won so many games recently. They're on a huge win streak again, but I think they might lose this game to the White Sox, dude. We don't even know who Detroit's starting pitcher is going to be, which Detroit, as I've mentioned, is notorious for not listing a starting pitcher until the last minute. They keep doing that. And I thought it was to throw off their opponent, but in this game, I think it's because this game doesn't matter anymore. Detroit is locked into one of the wild cards, and you could argue, I guess, there's like battling for seeding, but because I got it wrong, actually. I thought there was a wild card playoff, but that's the way that it used to be. Now 6 teams get in each league, so the top 2 seeds just get a bye. So it's like kind of similar to what the NFL playoff used to be. So it's just a matter of like, do you care about the difference between the 5 seed and the 6 seed? I don't think you really do. I mean, it depends on if you really care about who you're matched up against, and you don't even know who that's necessarily going to be yet either, because I don't think the top seeds have been totally determined yet, because I guess the way it is right now, you're going to wind up facing either Houston or Baltimore, I guess, are probably going to be the 3 and 4 seeds as it stands right now. So I don't even know what to think about all of that. But Detroit, I think they could be just in a letdown spot, in a spot where they aren't really going to have much motivation here, because it's just so big for them to get back to the playoffs, and nobody expected it. One unfortunate thing that I haven't mentioned on the show is Detroit, when it looked like they were probably not going to do anything this year, they unloaded Jack Flaherty, and he's now on the Dodgers. And he's been one of the better pitchers in baseball. He's been really, really good this year. And Detroit unloaded him like they were trying to get rid of some guys because they thought they weren't going to go anywhere this season. Now they're going to be in the playoffs, and they don't have who would be one of their best starting pitchers. Can you imagine what Detroit's starting pitching rotation would be going into the playoffs if they didn't do that? They would have Tariq Skubal, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball. They would have Flaherty probably number 2, and then Reese Olson, if he's actually going to be healthy, would be in there as well. I mean, I can't believe that they did that, and this is the situation now. And he's on the Dodgers, so what if you get a situation where Detroit and the Dodgers face off in the World Series, and Jack Flaherty pitches for the Dodgers against Detroit, who traded him away thinking that they weren't going to be there? That would be an insane storyline there, man. It'll be competitive because both teams suck. Ohio State? You mean Ohio State, Michigan State? Ohio State doesn't suck. Or do you mean, although I think Ryan Day is a moronic coach. Or do you think, or are you talking about Chicago White Sox and Detroit? Detroit doesn't really suck, man. They're playing pretty well right now. The slump continues. That is right, Stacks. But again, I'm talking about this for too long, I guess. But I would lean to the White Sox here. And the White Sox actually have one of the few starting pitching scenarios where I don't mind actually playing on the White Sox here, even though I'm not going to do it. They got Sean Burke, my homeboy from Worcester, Massachusetts here. He's only 24 years old, and I believe that he is a rookie. Yeah, he's only made 2 starts in his major league career so far, and they haven't been bad. I mean, he's made 3 appearances, 2 starts, and he's allowed 0 earned runs in a relief appearance, 2 and 1 earned runs in his 2 starts so far. Granted, they were against Oakland and then at San Diego, but San Diego does still hit pretty well at home, and shutting out Cleveland for 3 innings isn't something to be overlooked either. So Burke actually might have decent stuff, and a 16-4 strikeout walk ratio doesn't look bad either. 1.93 ERA, 1 whip, and these Detroit hitters have never seen him before. So Burke actually, he's like maybe the one starting pitcher at this point with the White Sox that I wouldn't actually mind making a play on the Chicago White Sox. And there is going to be no line on this yet because the Detroit pitcher is undecided, so who knows? Oh, there is a line. Detroit's minus 250. They're a massive favorite in this game. I think Detroit's way too heavy a favorite there, man. So if you wanted to fire, maybe play a little bit of like the run line there just to take the White Sox to come within spread of multiple runs there. I don't mind it, man, because Detroit, I think they're in a big letdown spot, and they don't really have anything left to play for now that they're in the playoffs now, and they know they're going to be in one of those last 2 wild card spots, so I really don't think it matters. Philadelphia, I think, has a major pitching advantage at Washington with Zach Wheeler, who just completely dominates Washington in his career. Mackenzie Gore for Washington has really bad numbers against Philadelphia, but Philadelphia is already in the playoffs at this point. I think they've clinched. Have they clinched? Maybe they haven't even clinched the division yet, but I think it's almost a certainty that if they haven't yet, that they're going to be the division winner for the NL East. So I don't think they have that much motivation here. That line is dropped on Philly as a huge favorite from minus 205 to minus 189, 80% of the tickets and only 72% of the cash on them. Philly, like I said, huge starting pitching mismatch, but I think motivation is definitely in question there for Philadelphia. So that's not something I want to get involved in. St. Louis and San Francisco, I'll just point out because it looked like it was going to be a pitching mismatch with Andre Palante for St. Louis. Even though he's been pitching really well, he has bad numbers in his career against the San Francisco Giants. I think they hit like over 300 against him. And San Francisco did have Blake Snell listed as their starter, and Snell has been pitching really, really excellently since he's come back from being injured. He's been lights out, like one of the best pitchers in baseball, like the Snell of old, basically. So I was like, oh man, you might actually be able to play San Francisco here. But as you can see, San Francisco dropped from minus 160 to minus 117. The reason being they decided to not pitch Snell in this game. And I don't know if he's going to pitch tomorrow, if they're just going to not pitch him in the remainder of the season here, because I thought he had a huge advantage. He actually has dominant numbers against St. Louis, but he's not pitching, and now it's going to be Tristan Beck, who is a relief pitcher for the most part, who's going to be making an opener start in that game. So I guess I'm not playing San Francisco in that one now, even though you might actually get extra value on San Francisco if you did want to play that side. Palante is still pitching for St. Louis, and he has bad numbers against San Francisco, and he's been pitching well recently. So it might be one of those sneaky matchups where you can fade a pitcher because their matchup is actually really bad against that opposing lineup. San Francisco's public, though, with 69% of tickets, but 72% of the cash, so maybe some play on them at that lesser price there. In the NL playoff matchup, you got a situation where it is a three-way tie for the final two spots, man. The Mets, the Braves, and the Diamondbacks are tied, and only two of them are going to make the playoffs. And based on the tiebreakers, Arizona is the team that's actually out right now. It is a crazy cluster in the National League, man, where all three of those teams are going to need to continue playing. The Mets are going to need to win this game against Milwaukee on the road, staying in the haunted hotel in Milwaukee. Mets are very public with 81% of the tickets, but they do have 88% of the cash on them. So it looks like there is actually some market movement on the Mets side, as public as they are. Public continuing to overlook Milwaukee, but they also know that the Mets need to win. They know who the Mets pitcher is, at least Quintana, who's a guy I crap on all the time on the show. But Quintana has been pitching really, really well recently somehow, even though I think he's just a junk pitcher who's getting way up there in age. And, of course, the public doesn't know who Jared Koenig is for Milwaukee. But Koenig, I think he's like a relief pitcher type of guy. I think it's going to be a bullpen game for Milwaukee today. I think he's going to be making an opener type of start there. So that's what you're going to get out of Milwaukee. So take from that what you will. As I mentioned, with the bullpen games like that, it can have its advantages, which is why some of these teams do it. I think it started with Tampa Bay. I don't remember if it was a Joe Madden thing because he was a crazy manager. If it was somebody else on Tampa there, realized like, hey, but you do run through too many relief pitchers when you do that. But still, they realize that, hey, when you're constantly throwing new pitchers at these hitters, the hitters like have a hard time adjusting to all these different pitchers who throw different stuff. So that's kind of the idea of the bullpen approach. So I think that's what Milwaukee's doing there. Quintana for the Mets, this is tough for me to gauge, man, because the Mets need to win this game. Big wild card implications here. Milwaukee obviously has already settled. They're in the playoffs. They already won their division. Quintana, his numbers are actually down to very respectable numbers on the season. 3.74 ERA, 1.24 whip. And over his recent starts, he's allowed 0 or 1 earned run in 4 of his last 5 starts, and he pitched shutouts in 4 of the 5. And went more than 5 innings in every one except for the White Sox, where he allowed 1 earned run against the White Sox, throwing shutouts for at least 6 1/3 against San Diego, Cincinnati, Philly, and Washington. So he is in really good current form, shockingly, with a 0 ERA in the month of September, 14-4 strikeout walk ratio. He's pitching well at the most clutch time, I guess, because I don't think he's that good overall, but he's choosing the right time to be in his best form, man. But then the problem is he has really bad numbers against Milwaukee with an 11-9 strikeout walk ratio, 49 at bats worth of a sample size here, 306 average and 965 OPS. So Milwaukee's hitters do hit him well, but Milwaukee's motivation, I think, is in question here. And with Quintana pitching as well as he has been recently, I actually probably have a slight lean to the Mets side in that one. Then you got San Diego, Arizona. Arizona needs to win this game, but boy, you're paying a price for this. Up from minus 170 to minus 180. They're public, 79% of the tickets, 98% of the cash. So it looks like maybe there is some cash coming in on the Arizona side, and they're way public. I'm not going to lay a huge price with Arizona here, man. You not only need them to win the game here, but you're going to need them to win and cover basically the price that you're laying there. Like they need to have such a percentage chance to win that they need to overcome that huge price there, or you're going to be probably playing a run line and need them to win by multiple runs. I don't want to actually do it, and Eduardo Rodriguez is not one of the better pitchers for Arizona either, and I believe he has, I don't know what his numbers are against San Diego actually, but he is not one of the better pitchers for Arizona in general. ERA in the mid-5s, whip in the mid-1.5s, or in the 1.5s. I mean, not something I want to get involved in. A 6 ERA this month with way too many walks. No, thank you. But he has actually dominated San Diego's hitters in 61 at-bats worth, although more than half of them are specifically against Machado, and he destroys Machado and holds him to a 6 for 37 clip, which is crazy. But overall, 15-8 strikeout walk ratio isn't good, though. He's walked way too many, but 5 walks against Machado. But overall, he's held San Diego to a 180 batting average and 488 OPS. So he has done well against San Diego, so there is that advantage towards him, I guess. Randy Vasquez is pitching for San Diego, and he is certainly not one of their better pitchers either. His numbers are similar to Rodriguez. He has bad numbers as well, so I just don't like it, man. For a minute, I was looking, maybe playing an over in this one, but then I was like, no, because Rodriguez's stats are good enough against San Diego that I don't think it totally makes sense to play an over in this one. Vasquez, I think, was actually injured and is coming off of, I don't think he actually even is missing a start, or maybe his start got pushed back or something. I don't even know, but you have to actually go to his batter versus pitcher stats here. Oh, my God. You have to actually type it in because of his injury that didn't even keep him out of a game to see that he has mediocre numbers against Arizona here. But they have an 847 OPS off him, which is a pretty decent OPS. So I don't know about that one. That's not something I'm going to get involved in either. I'll just point it out. And then you have the Dodgers, Colorado. I actually lean to an over in this one. It is Yamamoto against Senzatella. Dodgers huge favorite. With it looks like a lot of money actually coming in, pushing the line towards Colorado, and the big cash percentage on Colorado. 70% of the tickets of the cash on them, with 75% of the tickets on Dodgers. Of course, the public's coming in on the Dodgers. The Dodgers don't have anything left to play for, really. I mean, they've clinched their division. But the side is not something I'm interested in. What I'm interested in potentially, I'm not playing it, but I like the total actually over 10.5, and it looks like it's going up above the 10.5. It's further juiced to the over, so it's probably going to wind up on the 11, which is sort of a key-ish number in baseball. Basically, all the odd numbers are key in baseball because you need that additional run to break a tie. Of course, the total's really high because it's in Colorado. It's in Coors Field, so there's a lot of hitting there in the thin air of Colorado. It looks like the money is indicating on the over. 73% of tickets, 90% of the cash. Yamamoto, he's not a guy that I like to come in on and play overs, really, because he's a rookie in the major leagues. He's been a professional pitcher in Japan for a while, so he's very experienced in pitching professionally at the very least. He's got basically an entire season under his belt now with LA, but the problem is he did just come back from injury, and he's pitched okay since then, but the problem is he has not pitched well against Colorado, and he just faced Colorado in his last outing at home, and he didn't do well in that game. I think he only went 3 or 4 innings and allowed 4 or 5 earned runs or something in that game. He didn't do well, and now he's facing Colorado immediately again. And when you have a pitcher facing the same lineup in back-to-back starts, that tends to be an extra advantage to the hitters because they just saw him. So he's not unfamiliar to them anymore. They know what to expect out of him, and he didn't even do well in that one. So I think Yamamoto might not have the best game in this one. And then Senzatella, I mean, this is Colorado, so I mean, his numbers I don't think are anything to write home about. Even though his ERA looks good, his whip is 1.63, so that's not good. And up against the Dodgers have 138 at-bats against them, 19-14 strikeout walk ratio, 275 average, and 828 OPS. So they've hit him fairly decently as well in a big sample size. So the over would be the way I would look in that one. Then we go to the American League, which is not as much of a cluster, although I haven't gotten to Atlanta yet because they're in the interleague section there. So what I will just point out is that Minnesota, they're going to be in maybe the Dream Crusher scenario, though I don't know if they really still thought they could make the playoffs going into yesterday where they were 3 games back of the wild card. They kind of knew, basically, if they lost yesterday or if I think both of their opponents won, Detroit and Kansas City, they were going to be eliminated. So I don't know how much hope they really did have, but now they're officially eliminated. So I don't think Minnesota's in a very good spot here. They got Zebby Matthews listed as their starter. He's a rookie, and he's had some okay starts and some really not okay starts. He's been kind of all over the place, and mostly I think he's been way too hittable. So his overall numbers just aren't good, even though he's had some good starts mixed in there. In Baltimore, I believe, has never seen him before, so maybe he has an added edge just because he's a rookie, young pitcher. He does actually have pretty good stuff. So he does have the ability to get guys out at the major league level, but he's struggled a bit so far. And Baltimore, I think it's all going to depend on how motivated Baltimore is. I don't know if Zebby Matthews is going to have that much of an edge because Baltimore hasn't seen him. Baltimore, I don't know if they're going to be that motivated because they're essentially locked into the top wild card spot right now. I don't think they're going to move out of that spot. I think it might be impossible, actually. I think they might be locked into it. So Baltimore, we don't even know who their starting pitcher is going to be here, and I don't think Baltimore cares that much. So this is going to be a game where I don't think either team has that much motivation, man. So I don't know what to expect out of that. And then Oakland-Seattle, I was looking maybe towards an under in that one because you got Joey Estes, who actually has good numbers in his career against Seattle, holding them to a below 200 batting average. His overall stats aren't terrible either. Against Emerson Hancock, who's a young pitcher for Seattle who has okay numbers, and I think Oakland has never faced him before. So I was looking at maybe an under in that one, but the total actually is indicating on the over in the market. It's gone up from 7 juice to the under to 7.5 juice to the over. So kind of a significant move on the over. 62% of the tickets, 92% of the cash. So I'm not going to actually play that game. But my first indication, like my first instinct on the starting pitching matchup there was to look under in that one, but I'm not going to do it. And then Kansas City, Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta needs to win this game, man. They are in that 3-way tie there. They're currently actually, they have the tiebreakers currently, so they're actually currently in the 5th seed right now. Where a couple days ago, they were 1 game out of the wild card completely, but I think everybody kind of knew Atlanta was going to make some noise. I played on them yesterday, and I'm finally in the black again this year, man, with my win on the Braves yesterday. I'm heating up again. My baseball's on a good run. My football has been good. Atlanta, I mean, you're paying way too much of a price if you want to pay Atlanta, if you want to play Atlanta here. Minus 147 up to minus 188. 84% of the tickets and 97% of the cash, even though I agree with the Atlanta side because of the motivation here. Like, Kansas City has nothing left to play for, man. They clinched a playoff spot, and they really haven't been playing well recently, but they're in the playoffs, so they really don't have that much of a reason to show up here. Atlanta has every reason to show up because they're in that 3-way tie, and they need to win. But this line moving way up, that's a crazy line move, and I think maybe it was because Atlanta had somebody else listed as their starter, and now they have Ronaldo Lopez listed, so I think that might be why the line moved to such an extent. My apologies there. So I think that's probably why the line moved. I don't think that was all just the market moving that significantly, but so if you want to play Atlanta, I would do what I did yesterday and lay the 1.5 run line, but I think this is less of a good pitching matchup for it than yesterday's was, even though the motivation is certainly still there. In Kansas City, for them, it may be even less so because they're now officially in the playoffs, but I don't necessarily want to fade Seth Lugo. I mean, he's been one of Kansas City's better pitchers this season. Really good stats overall in the season. He's putting together a nice season. And he's been pitching well this month, too. 2.45 ERA, 23-3 strikeout walk ratio. Against the Atlanta Braves, he has pretty good numbers, too, and 68 at-bats, 221 average, 723 OPS. Isn't that high either. So he's done pretty well against them. 19-9 strikeout walk ratio isn't that great. It's more walks than we usually see out of Lugo, but he's not a guy I really want to fade. And Ronaldo Lopez, I mean, debatably, he is the better of these two starters with a really low 2.03 ERA this season, 1.15 whip, and he was pitching decently as of late as well. I mean, you had to go all the way back to July 22nd to find a start where he allowed more than 2 earned runs in a start. And then he got injured in his most recent start where he left the game, I think, after kind of throwing too many pitches in one inning against Washington. But he was having a bunch of good starts recently, 2.57 ERA in the month of September, 1.59 in August. So he was pitching well at the right time as well. And up against the Kansas City Royals, he has okay numbers against them, 68 at-bats. Well, 250 batting average, but an 805 OPS is a little bit high because he's allowed 5 home runs, but basically all of them are to Perez and Pham. So they have 4 out of the 5 of them. So I don't know. So those good hitting numbers are all kind of clustered in there. So I don't know about that. But 13-7 strikeout walk ratio isn't that good either. He's been a little bit wild against them, but overall, I don't think his numbers are that bad against the Royals. But I think Lugo actually has the better of the matchup here. But Atlanta certainly has way more motivation here. So I don't think the pitching matchup discrepancy is enough to actually say that I would lean against Atlanta here. I do not. I lean to the Atlanta side in that one. And then the game that I'm actually going to be on, what's up, guys? Hulk Hogan, what's going on, man? It pops up in the algorithm. Yes. No, I started using the Tower Gang channel maybe 2 weeks ago. I only started doing lives like 1 or 2 weeks ago. So that's good, man. If it starts coming up in the TG algorithm, all the Tower Gang fans are going to see this on the slate and be very disappointed. The one game I'm going to be on is an under, and it's Pittsburgh, New York Yankees. I'm playing under. This pitching matchup looks really nice for an under here, even though yesterday we're looking at yesterday's game was also low scoring. So the Yankees, they're not really getting any favors by having to face Jared Jones, even though he didn't do that well yesterday. And now Paul Skeens, of course, is pitching in this game where you don't get too much value usually, like I said, playing on Paul Skeens' side or on unders in his game now that everybody knows how awesome he is. But I think if you get it at 7, I think it still makes sense to play the under in this one with this starting pitching matchup that looks really good for it on both sides. Yesterday, both teams did use a lot of relievers yesterday, so that's one thing. You're going to need these starters to go deep into this game, and I think I think it's okay to still play the full game under in this one, even though because it is starting pitching dependent as well. If you wanted to play the under in the first 5 innings, I don't blame you. I agree with that as well, but you're probably playing like under 3 in the first 5 innings or under 3.5 with a lot of juice. So I think the price isn't as good on that. So, yes, Pittsburgh used 5 relief pitchers yesterday, and they used Chapman against his former team, who is, I believe, still their closer. And the Yankees used 4 of their relief pitchers. So the bullpen's maybe not in the greatest shape coming into this game, but it is also September call-ups, man. So these teams do both have extra relief pitchers in their bullpens. So I don't think the fact that they used a decent amount of relievers yesterday is as bad as it would be at other points in the season. So I don't really mind it that much, the fact that they used some of their relief pitchers yesterday. And if these starting pitchers are going to get you deep into this game, then you don't have to worry as much about the bullpens, and hopefully that's going to be the case here. And I think probably it should be, unless these guys are going to be on certain pitch counts or something. Paul Skeens, NL Rookie of the Year, baby. It's going to be him. It's not going to be Jackson Merrill, I think, is the other guy who it might be in the NL for his hitting prowess. I think it's got to be Skeens, man. It's got to be the stash. His ERA in the season is now down below 2, and his whip is still below 1. I mean, these are crazy stats, dude. This is like old school, like dominant pitcher type of stuff here, man. This is wild to see these numbers. He does not look like he's wearing down, even though this is his rookie season. They've done a decent job not overworking him, really. He's pitched 131 innings this season, 167 to 32 strikeout walk ratio, 94 hits allowed. He's allowed very few hits. He's been almost untouchable. The number of walks isn't that high either. Really high strikeout rate as well. Of course, he's Paul Skeens. He throws, nearly 100. And even though he throws that hard, like I said, he doesn't seem to be suffering from that or wearing down. He has a .82 ERA in the month of September with a 31-6 strikeout walk ratio. And they're continuing to let him pitch, even though they did take him out of the Cincinnati game after 73 pitches. So does that worry me a little bit that maybe they're starting to limit him? I don't know, because this is also going to be his last start of the season, so they might just let him go. I mean, they don't want to get him injured, but he's not going to pitch again this season, so maybe they want him to just go for it, potentially, hopefully. But he's been pitching really well this month, not allowing more than one earned run in any of these starts, although he hasn't faced the greatest offenses in any of these, really. But he's Paul Skeens, man. I mean, he's just been consistently really good. And, of course, the New York Yankees have never seen Paul Skeens. So last start of the season, the rookie Paul Skeens, last start of his rookie season, we get the extra added edge. You have one of the best pitchers, the best rookie pitcher that we've seen in a long time. And even though he's facing a really good hitting lineup, this is a Yankees team that doesn't really need to win this game. I mean, they've already clinched the AL East, which I mentioned yesterday. They could have been in a letdown spot yesterday, and the Pirates did win the game yesterday. So the Yankees, they don't need these games, so I don't know if their hitting is going to show up totally focused here, even though, well, maybe they will just because they want to try to hit Paul Skeens, but still, I think Skeens is going to have the added edge because the Yankees don't really need this game, and the Yankees have never seen him before, and he has such good stuff that's got to be a little bit of an extra added edge to Paul Skeens because these hitters have not seen him. And then on the other side, you have a similar scenario with Luis Gil pitching for the Yankees. He's, I guess, according to the technicalities, I guess he's technically having his rookie season this year because he didn't pitch enough innings in the two previous seasons with the Yankees to qualify as a rookie. But he has really broken out this season, which is his technical rookie season, with 3.27 ERA, 1.19 WHIP, 146 innings pitched. So he also hasn't pitched that many innings, really. 166 strikeouts, 76 walks is way too high. Yes, he is wild. That's the one drawback with him is he walks way too many guys, and he needs to get that in check. But he is so unhittable that his WHIP is actually still fairly low. He's only allowed 98 hits in that entire span, so he is allowing very, very few hits. He's been really good, and he's been pretty good recently. He doesn't seem to be wearing down, actually, either, even though he had kind of a speed bump there in the month of August, and I think he might have actually missed a start or two at some point in here because he didn't make as many starts, or maybe they spaced his starts out a little bit more. Didn't really do well in August, but he didn't really have any game where he got completely crushed since going all the way back to June, where he had another speed bump there. So he had a couple of starts where he had a couple issues there, but I think he's gotten over that, and he's returned to form, even though, yes, his last start against Oakland wasn't good, allowing 4 earned runs to a not very great Oakland lineup and walking 3 guys. Yes, his walk numbers are still bad, but overall, a 2.53 ERA in the month of September is pretty good. 22-10 strikeout walk ratio. I mean, it's a lot of strikeouts. It's way too many walks. Again, he really has to get that control under wraps, but he allows few enough hits that it doesn't really wind up totally killing him. And against Pittsburgh, as I mentioned, Pittsburgh basically has never seen him before. We have 2 guys on Pittsburgh's roster, Grandal and Kiner Falefa. How do you pronounce that guy's name? I have no idea who that guy is. They have combined for an 0-for-4 clip against Luis Gil with 2 strikeouts and, of course, 1 walk mixed in there. So I don't think there's much you can really gather from that really small sample size. So what we can say is that Pittsburgh's lineup essentially has never seen Gil before either. So this is a lineup where you got 2 starting pitchers here who have really good stuff, and they're both completely unfamiliar, essentially, to the opposing lineup. So the opposing hitters could struggle. Both starting pitchers have the advantage of being totally unfamiliar to the opposing hitters. So this looks like a good pitching matchup. This is the pitching matchup of the day, man. It's just going to come down to, well, motivation. But I think when you get teams that don't really need to win this game, like the game doesn't really matter to the 2 teams, I think that tends to affect the hitting more than the pitching, in my opinion. Like, the pitcher is an individual, so it all kind of depends on, is that specific pitcher going to be motivated? And I think these guys will still be motivated because they want to outduel each other in what's going to be their last start of the season, whereas the hitters, you have a lot more hitters to kind of take into account what their mental state is going to be. And overall, I don't think they care as much about winning this game necessarily. We have 64% of the tickets on the under. Unfortunately, it is a Paul Skeens game, and 70% of the cash on the under. And it looks like we've had significant movement on the under from 8 juice to the under, which I realize is a good hitting Yankees lineup. Pittsburgh's lineup isn't very good, and it is a more hitter-friendly park in Yankee Stadium, so that concerns me a little bit. But the starting pitching match, I think, is just so good for this that if you get under that key number 7, I still like this one. And it has dropped, man. Unfortunately, you probably could have gotten 7.5 at some point in there, but I think it just crashed really quickly down to 7 juice to the under. I was able to find it at minus 115 under the 7, so I think that's a good price for still getting the 7. You want that key number 7, man, because it looks like 6.5s are starting to crop up in some places. Paying up to like maybe minus 120 to get the under 7, I think, is not a bad way to go. As I always say, that key number is 7 in baseball, man. In a baseball game with a low total like this, because the 3-3 tie, you need one extra run to break that tie. So the 7 is key. That's what I'm doing. I'm playing Pittsburgh, New York Yankees, under 7, Skeens versus Heel, and they must start in that game. And then my college football, you can go watch my college football video for the extra analysis there. Kansas State minus 5, Minnesota actually plus 11 on that one, Baylor minus 3, and Auburn plus 2. That's going to do it for me, man. I'm Tower Gang Toad, as always. Another long morning video from me. Let's get some wins today. Let's enjoy the college football, and let's enjoy the baseball battles that still are there, the remaining wild card fiasco that's going on in the National League there. Let's have a good day, man. Have a good Saturday. I'm Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. Go follow me on there and follow the Tower Gang Podcast, of course, which just look us up. You can find us everywhere. I think our SEO is not too bad because we are the one and only Tower Gang. Don't pay attention to that rap group that has the same name as us that's somewhere out there. Tower Gang, baby. Go sign up for the Patreon as well, patreon.com/Tower Gang. I'm Tower Gang Toad once again. Have a good night. Have a good day and a good night. Oh, man, I've gotten no sleep. Well, I got a little bit more sleep because it's a weekend at least. But, man, have a good day and have a good Saturday night with the games continuing into the night, of course. Peace out, guys. And thanks for showing up. Thanks for showing up, Ian. I'll get you in there right at the end there. Thanks for showing up, guys. Peace.